Octopath Traveler is such an amazing game. But why? It's been over 4 years since the game originally released. I remember admiring this game. I considered it to be one of my favorites, and yet I haven't played it since. With the upcoming release of Octopath Traveler 2, I decided now was the time to return to the original. I want to remember the things that I loved about this game. I want to acknowledge some of its shortcomings, and I want to answer the question, what makes Octopath Traveler so special? Well, I can think of one obvious reason. When the game was first announced, the visual style was what caught my attention, and I'm sure many feel the same way. At the time, this was incredibly unique. It's a modernized approach of the graphical style of JRPGs from the SNES era. With the added depth and the use of special effects, they created a world that looks like a pop-up picture book come to life. The lighting in the dungeons, the glint in the sand, the reflection of the light, the color of the frostlands, everything about this style is a visual feast. Every time I play this game, I often stop myself to take in the gorgeous scenery. The level of detail and care they put into making this world look so good cannot be understated. Every area in the game is a pleasure to look at. Okay, maybe not the flatlands. They're just kinda okay. And outstanding visuals isn't the only thing this game has going for it. I enjoyed the turn-based combat. The core strategy is simple. All you have to do is just break the enemy and deal a load of damage. That's the core idea of the combat system, and it doesn't really change much from there. But that doesn't mean it's dull or anything. There's plenty of mechanics that help add more depth to the gameplay. You have the boost mechanic, which can help you strengthen the power of one of your skills. You have the job system, which are basically like character classes that allows you to use a secondary class to increase the amount of skills your characters can use. Then you have the support skills, which provide effects that are useful while you're traveling or while in battle. There's a lot you can do with the tools available to you, and you have a lot of freedom in how you want to set up your party. And because of this freedom, I never felt the need to grind because most of my problems were solved by either rearranging who was in my party or what jobs they equipped. But honestly, it's not like this game is that hard. The difficulty curve basically does not exist. There's only like 2 moments that I can think of where I was actually struggling. One of them is the end game, and the other one is Omar. If there's anything I remember vividly, it's just the amount of times I've died to his boss fight. Screw this guy. Then there's also the issue of repetition. Even though I said that the combat system is enjoyable, it can get a little repetitive near the end of the game. I remember in my first playthrough, by the time I was completing everyone's final chapter, I was kind of fed up with the whole combat. Like, it evolves in the beginning. At a certain point, you see everything. Throughout 90% of my first playthrough, and even in this playthrough, it was satisfying just breaking the enemy and dealing the highest amount of damage as I possibly can. Also, Alpin's last stand is goated.
Let's get down to...
There is something new I've come to appreciate. One day, as I was recording footage for this video, I decided to turn off the music to just listen to the ambience of the world. I guess I was just curious. I wanted to know what it was like to not hear the music. And you know what? It made me realize something. Just listen to it for a moment. Listen to the environment. It sounds peaceful, right? Almost as if it's real. It's immersive. Taking that moment to just listen to the waves crashing on the shore made me feel at ease, and it really made me appreciate just how good the sound design in this game really is. The battle sounds are great, but the environmental sounds are just as amazing. I wanted to talk about it because it's not really something that's mentioned, and I thought it'd be nice to appreciate something that's often overlooked. I think the reason why I never noticed the sounds of the environments is because it gets overshadowed by the music. If you know what's good for you, don't turn off the music. That is a sin. These are some of the most powerful and memorable melodies I ever listened to. This was something I loved about the game back when I first played it, and it's something I still love today. I don't even know what else to say about it. I could probably go on all day just talking about it, but like I don't think that would be enough to give it justice. You should really take some time to listen to the soundtrack. Or you could just, I guess, play the game. Some of these themes just have a strong emotional power to them that I often find myself feeling sentimental. A lot of my feelings that I had for this game haven't changed a bit, but it's at this point that I start to feel a little conflicted, especially now that I returned to it and just thought about it a little bit more. First, I want to say that I like that the game gives you the freedom to explore. You can go to whatever town you want, you can find side dungeons to tackle, with some of them containing bosses, and you can complete the chapters in whatever order you want. You're also given different ways to interact with the NPCs in the world, which provide a host of beneficial effects for the player, and it makes them feel less like a glorified text box. And I think it's cool that some side quests have their own little storylines with recurring characters. However, I think that's really all I've got to say that's positive about the world. There isn't much world building, or at least not enough to really get me interested. I don't go out of my way to learn every little detail I can, but a little bit besides, oh, this is a scholarly town, oh, this has a brothel, would have been nice. I even went out of my way to just try to find every little detail I can about one specific town, and I turned out with nothing. NPCs don't really move from their spots. They're just kind of standing there, like glorified text boxes. Wow, would you look at that? I find it weird that there's 8 areas that are like organized like a pizza. That area over here is always going to be the snow. This area down there is always the desert. And not only that, there's not much variation within those zones. And because of this, the visuals can grow stale and the towns can become a little forgettable. Case in point, I forgot about most of them. The stories. There are 8 characters that are on a journey to accomplish their goals, and you have a choice for which one you want to be your main protagonist. I think the concept of Octopath Traveler is really interesting. That hasn't changed. What has changed is my opinion on, well, the stories themselves. I remember enjoying some of the stories. They're each separated from each other. They have their distinct tones. Some of them are lighthearted, others are more serious. And there's some good character moments here. I remember enjoying Therion's arc about learning to trust in people again. And I like that Alvin's ideals of treating anyone, no matter who they were challenged in chapter 3. And I think the single most impressive part about these stories, which, spoiler alert I guess, is how they are all connected by a single plot thread. I thought that was brilliant. There's a lot to enjoy about the stories, but it's also probably the weakest part of this game. I said that they're simple stories, and while simple doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, it does mean that they're a little boring and generic. And if you were expecting some grand epic tale about how these group of people killed a god or whatever, you're not gonna get that. Sort of. You do kind of kill a god, but whatever. And some of these chapters were just uninteresting, to put it lightly. I didn't even remember most of Ophelia's story until like the end, and they all pretty much followed like a similar structure. You go into town, you follow the green dot on your radar, you do some path action shenanigans, and then you enter a dungeon to fight a boss. And then there's the whole reason why they're traveling together, which there is none. They only really ever join you because you decided to listen to their life story, and then there's the whole ordeal with character interactions. The only time these characters actually talk with each other is through this little segment called Traveler Banter, which occurs between chapter scenes. And they're pretty enjoyable, but it's not enough. None of their stories overlap with each other, even when they occur in the same location. And although I don't mind that they're self-contained, it would have been nice to see some kind of interaction, cooperation, or just anything. I genuinely feel conflicted about how they structured the stories. But if there is one thing that I am certain, is that there is one moment in each story that I love so much. This one moment is arguably the hypest moment of every chapter in the game. And that is the lead up to the boss fight.
I need not explain that to you.
And who might you be?
Do you remember me? My house, my father?
You reach the end of the dungeon. A cutscene begins. There lies the boss, the main obstacle the character needs to overcome. Some words exchange, tension rises, Eventually, a prelude theme specific to each character begins, building anticipation, and soon, the battle begins.
Never in my life have I heard someone stutter such great.
It just happens to be a present.
Peacock strike.
This shit is so good. The presentation of this moment is fantastic. The drum fill in the beginning of Decisive Battle 2 is so nasty, I love it. Every time I hear the prelude theme transition to the boss music, it gives me goosebumps. And look at those boss sprites. They have more pixels than me. They're so detailed and intimidating, towering over your party. It's almost impressive how beautiful it looks. But besides all those little details, I enjoy these fights. They are pretty challenging. Unless you're Omar. Then in which case you're a pain in the ass. I hate you. Still beat though. There are many moments in these fights where I just have to stop and think about what I need to do next. And it really is just a test of how well you've set up your party. These bosses have huge HP pools, so if your party is unable to output a lot of damage or mitigate their powerful attacks, these fights can start to drag out. Now, if these sound like an issue to you, then just get good. No, but seriously, regardless of the problems that may or may not exist, these are definitely the best moments of the game. And I will never grow tired of this. Replaying Octopath Traveler reminded me of these feelings I once had. Coming back to this game was a nice trip down memory lane. The music is still phenomenal, the visuals are still gorgeous. In fact, I would argue that I appreciate them even more now. I like the premise of being able to choose your own adventure and the freedom to go about the world as you please. And I think it's for these reasons that Octopath Traveler is special. Its sense of adventure and freedom. Its wonderful aesthetic and captivating music. It is a callback to the old school JRPGs of the SNES days with a modern upgrade that elevates it to a level of just pure art. And another thing about this game is that it's like a miniature sized JRPG. It feels compact to the point where I think it's almost wrong to play it on anything other than a handheld like a Switch. I gathered the footage off of the Xbox. Don't laugh. And while it does look amazing, I almost feel like it's unnecessary. I only did it because I wanted to play it in 60 frames. And while 60 frames makes for a more responsive and smooth gaming experience, 30 frames was good enough. It almost feels unnecessary to even go that far. And the game is also special to me personally. At the time, I wasn't interested in gaming anymore. I still played games, but it wasn't the same. I didn't do it as often, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I used to. I couldn't stick to a game for longer than a day. I never had that same feeling that I once had as a child. That wonder and that love and that passion, I guess. When I was about to buy the game, I thought if I did buy it, it would have been a waste of my money and I would have put it down after 30 minutes and just move on. But no. After I completed Tressa's story, I lost $60 that day. The demo sold me. I was captivated by this game. I played it as often as I could, and I felt such joy each time I did. I was willing to do almost everything that I can. I completed side quests, tackled some of the optional dungeons, and I beat the true final boss. I have the save file to prove it, and look at that. I haven't touched that game since this date. It's been so long. I don't know what it was, but in a way, the game kinda saved me. It reinvigorated my love for games again. And although it's not perfect, it still means a lot to me. The game was fresh and original, but at the same time, it was nostalgic. If you liked the video, consider just like the damn video. I don't think I'm ready to say that line just yet. I am only just starting to figure out what I want to do with this channel. Hopefully I won't take a month to make a video, right? Yeah, no promises. Anyways, I don't have much else to say, so I'm gone. Animals! How did I never notice? It even meowed! Look at him. He's so chill.